Hey YouTube, this is a request video from Kira Barsmith, who sounds like could be female, don't know. That could be like the 1.2% of the audience that's female, so pandering to the minorities. This is an Epiphone Les Paul Special 2, which I got. Les Paul Special 2, yeah, which I got in a trade. Actually, my pal Alex gave me it for wiring up his guitar. A white Les Paul, I put lots of switches and stuff in it. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. I think what part of the problem is here, I think the bridge has been replaced with a slightly different one, and resulting that, I don't know if you can see, but the action, maybe if I hold it up, I'm using a different camera to maybe get, the action here is high, very high. That's too high. I normally use a 2 pence piece, which maybe I could actually measure it. Where's the? I looked at all the things I was going to use. Yeah, so I'll point out the tools I'm using, and none of them are expensive, and I suppose they're not. Does a steel rule count as a tool? Maybe. So it's roughly 2mm is how thick a 2 pence piece is if you don't have a 2 pence piece. But I normally use that for, if you stick that between at the 12th fret, that if I can get it down to that, that's normally kind of alright. This is way above that. So you want it to be tight on the 2p piece for a decent action on both sides. This is high on both sides. So to sort it out, yes. So the first thing I would do is check the truss rod is okay. And what you do there is you hold down the string, kind of the last fret. You can put a cap on. I just use my finger and look. So you hold down the fret on the first fret and on the last fret, and in the middle it should be just, you know, like sort of round about here. It should be sort of not touching the fret, just like a ball hair above it. You know, like I don't know what a technical term is. Ball hair is a Scottish term for a very, very, very wee bit. That's what you want. This one is fine, so it's fine. Basically, if that's big, you take the truss rod. I'll do a truss rod video when I need to adjust the truss rod and something. Yeah, so I'm just going to do the whole thing live. So how long it actually takes when you kind of know what you're doing. Just assume if you've never done this before, it'll take you twice as long. So I don't know if that's going to take. Well, we're already at 3 minutes, so maybe I don't know, 10 minutes, something like that. I'm using a string winder. You don't. This is an optional thing. These are only like £1 or something. You actually get them free with this. I got one free with a set of strings the other day, or a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so I'm going to just loosen off the strings to about there, all of them. I found batteries for my clip-on tuners. I've got a few of these cheapy clip-on tuners, so I'm using that rather than having to plug the guitar into the wall. The reason I don't use the clip-on tuners is they look a bit ridiculous. It's not very cool, I don't think. You often see folk on stage and stuff using them, and it's like they just don't have a good look. Don't actually really need the string winder. I originally bought a string winder because I bought the 12-string acoustic. Actually, I had relatively recently, because you end up with a sore hand after when you're changing the strings on. You've got to change 12 of them. And it's just like yeah. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the neck off, but I'm going to try and do it without. Ideally, I would be changing strings in this, but these strings aren't actually that bad. I've not actually decided what I'm going to do with this guitar yet, whether it's going to be. I was thinking of swirl painting it because I thought that'd be quite cool. I think for a Buckmaster one, because it doesn't have a scratch plate, it's not really that obvious how to make it into an iron brew one. It's dead shiny though. A pal, it says it was all scratched on the surface, and he did his best at polishing it. And to be honest, he did a really good job. I think it looks really good. It's kind of like I might just put, you know, like a phase switch in or something like that, and then sell it. So I'm using my trusted dewalt drill, but you can just use a Phillips head screwdriver to take these bolts out. I worked as a joiner for 10 years, so I'm just used to using one of these. Just make sure you don't chew up the heads. Yeah. So there's the neck off. Oh, that's interesting. There's already, looks like there's a shim in there, but it's here. It was sitting up here. Yeah. So that means that if you think about the angles, that might actually just sort it. It's not very thin, just a wee piece of wood. So that would be from the factory. And obviously, what you want to do is to get the action down. If you tilt the neck back the way, obviously I'm exaggerating here. If you tilt the neck back the way, it makes the strings are now totally tight on the fingerboard, so you just want to raise it out a little bit. What I was going to do, oh look, I've just lost half of it. That's just a wee tiny thin bit of wood. But quite often you get offcuts of sandpaper. Oh, it's not just a neck completely off because it's a tunematic bridge. Right, I'll just put that down there. Yeah, I would normally cut up a wee piece of cardboard, something like a fag packet or something like that. I'm just going to put that in there because I think that was all that was wrong with it. But I would normally, I've even looked out an empty fag packet and a pair of scissors to cut out a wee bit just to sit in there. See that bit there? So I'm just going to sit that in there, and I'm basically just going to put the neck back on again. That's really it. And I think that's probably going to have partially solved it. Or it's probably going to have totally solved it. Because the shim was actually working as an anti-shim. This drill has a clutch on it. I'm just very careful not to chew it all the way up. Always make sure when you're using it, especially when you're using a drill, that you've got the exact right size screwdriver bit. Because if you've got the one that sort of fits, especially with a drill, you're likely just to chew it up. Yeah. What an absolute idiot. Right, so I've managed to screw the string below the neck plate. There you go, it's out now. Yep. That was really annoying having this pneumatic thing dangling about. And am I going to be able to get this back on again? I'm not, because I've not stretched it enough. I don't know, I've twisted it. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, okay, it was bound to happen really, wasn't it? Oh, am I going to be able to stretch it on? I am. I think I am. Yeah. There we go. Right, so it's back on. The bridge has fallen off, so it's here. And the next thing we use, which I don't think really counts as a tool, is you can buy like a straight edge from. I think if you went to StewMac, you'd probably get one for about 50 quid. I use this piece of angle metal, which is aluminium and I don't know, off something. I think I found it in the garage. So it's like, that's my straight edge. So I'm basically just going to sit it on the nut, on the groove, and then sit it there and see how close we are. That's made a huge difference. Yep, so now it's actually, when I've got it sitting there and it's touching the nut at that end, and there, it's actually floating on this. I'm going to have to raise this bridge up. But that's good, because this bridge was maxed out as low as it would go. So basically that's it. That's really all I'm going to do. All I'm going to do now is put the strings back on again. And then see what's going on. It'd be nice if I got this in one go. Quite often these things, you make a wee silly mistake and you have to take it off and do it again. I was assuming that the shim, a lot of these, one of the reasons I really like the bolt-on necks, because you can actually adjust these things. That's when I was in China, I was buying Telecasters. I wasn't even, well, partly because the Telecasters, you could take the necks off and then they would fit in my suitcase, so I didn't actually have to properly import them. I could just smuggle them in. But it also means that if the necks, we've got another issue here. The issue being the tuner has actually come off. So if I'll just screw that back in again. Are the screws threaded? The screws are threaded. Right. So what you want to do here, this is just me encountering problems as I go. I do believe I had a cocktail stick. I didn't. This is an unfolded one. This is an unforeseen error. So if you use a cocktail stick, if any of the screws are threaded in the guitar, it's quite handy just to, you just kind of stick a cocktail stick in, snap it off. This is quite a thin cocktail stick. Stick a couple of bits in, stick it in, snap it off, and it gives the screw something to stick to. Don't need to very much. Yeah. Also, it doesn't damage anything. I just stick. It should give it enough to the screws to get a grip. See what happens when people are watching you. Or maybe somebody's watching me. Right, and then these screws will be the other screwdriver, which is the sort of smaller metric. I know it is my green and black one. You kind of need two screwdrivers to work on a guitar. One is the sort of normal size, which does your neck bolts, and then you get this one, which does the wee screws, which are like things at the back of these ones that hold on the tuners. And now these screws are now tightening up, just with my wee cocktail stick thing. You can buy cocktail sticks at the pound shop. Same with the steel rule. Actually, I quite like the steel rule. It was only £1. I think if you're talking about, you know, mathematics and you're doing something incredibly detailed, it's probably much, you know, you probably get calibrated ones and all that. But if you're talking about trying to measure just a little bit, it's fine. Just use the steel rule because it doesn't have the plastic bit at the end. If you look at a normal ruler, which I also use, you know, it's like there's a plastic bit and then the numbers start, whereas a steel rule, the numbers start right at the end. I think I might actually need to look out. Oh, should be quicker if I was using the string winder a little bit. This is very just through the amount of times I've put strings on guitars, I can kind of normally get them. They're normally in tune by the time I finish putting them on. Just from So now what we've got is the strings are now sitting flat on the neck. So I need a flathead screwdriver to raise the bridge up a little bit. My flathead screwdriver. So I'm just going to raise this up. The strings aren't at full tension, they're just so they're no longer floppy. And I'll use my 2 pence piece. That still needs to come up a little bit more than that. If you use a 1p piece, so you want it so it's just, yep, that's about right. Some people like a really low action, but I find when the action gets too low, it gets sort of. I like to, maybe because I'm a bass player and I kind of like to hit the strings hard, I kind of need a little bit more in it. There we go. Yeah, so I shall use my tuner and tune it up. This is maybe when we're going to find out that there are going to be other problems. You know, there might be bad frets on it or something like that if it's going to be, which you wouldn't have noticed with the action as high as it was. I don't know if I've actually even plugged this guitar in, so I can't actually tell you whether the electrics work. Not the best tuners in the world. They're alright though. The thing about having the sort of cheaper tuners is very rarely do tuners ever slip. As long as they don't have dead spots and they're relatively smooth, they're just not as nice to use. You know, the sort of cheap type tuners. It's sometimes when you're changing strings on a guitar that's you know, got the £50 Grovers on it, they do feel nicer. They do, but they don't make any difference to the sound of the guitar. But I think if you sit there with a £1,000 guitar, then it's nice to have nicer tuners. But if you're sitting with even something like this, I think these are what, £150 new, something like that. So second hand, and it didn't used to be as much as that. Second hand, I think you can get it for under 100 quite easily. I'll probably sell this for, I don't know. Or maybe sell a wee bit more. I don't know. I'm not saying. There's maybe a wee bit better value buying guitars from me if you're buying these things because it will have been set up to play well. Whereas, yeah, you can probably pick one up for under 100 quid quite easily, but it might need to do this to the neck, and if there's other, you know, just general wee fidgety things that you need to make it play as good as it can. But I think, I don't know, maybe 80 quid, something like that, maybe, depending on if I might put some silly switches in it. I'll probably put like a coil split in it or something like that. Just give it more options. It doesn't really make. You can just ignore like a coil split. It just makes it a little bit more better value for money. So if we look at it now, I think probably now the strings are pulling on it. It's maybe a wee bit higher. Not too bad. And I would find that would be pretty acceptable. So you have 15 minutes. So that took what, 12 minutes, and that included having to put cocktail sticks in that screw. I will plug this in and see if it works. Just out of interest, I don't even know if is the amp on. The amp is on. But it's not making any noise. See, the thing about guitar leads, even the most expensive and best guitars you get, you have to plug the lead into the guitar and plug it into the other end into the amp, otherwise it doesn't work. So if I stick that in there and then take the other end of the lead, that's it now plugged into the amp. Yeah. Seems alright. Neck pickup. Whenever you've had the strings off, just expect that you're going to have to tune it up a couple of times until it gets used to. Why is that showing it? Slightly intermittent switch. I would argue that the bridge pickup isn't quite loud enough, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise it up a little bit. I'm just going to use that red screwdriver to do that, and that should even the balance out between them. I normally set the pickup so that if you kind of push the string down, it's not really that likely to touch it, but as high as you can get apart from that. I'm sure I had a pick. I did have a pick. Yeah, so there you go. That's how I would have shimmed the neck, even though the problem there was the fact that the neck must have been off this at some point, and the shim had actually moved from there. So instead of tilting the neck back the way, which is what we wanted to raise the strings up here, it was actually tilting the neck down the way, which meant that even when you had the bridge tight against the body, there wasn't enough, it wouldn't go low enough. I have actually done this before with like set neck guitars, and you put a different bridge on, it doesn't quite work. I've actually found myself angle grinding the bottom of the bridge off so that you can get it lower into the body because you can't adjust a set neck. So I'll have a wee think about this and see whether I'm going to put some sort of switch in. I'll call it the Peter Green sound. You get, like, it's quite easy to do a phase reverse switch. All you do is I'll put it on a push-pull pot on the tone control, and if you pull it up, it reverses one of the pickups. So when you're in the middle position, you get that out of phase sort of single coily Peter Green sound. That's nice and easy to do. It's actually not that easy to. The actual wiring of the switch is a bit difficult, but the problem with these pickups is these pickups will only have 2 wires on them, which means if you want to do coil splitting, you actually have to unwrap the tape off the pickup, go inside it, break into it, and then connect a wire to the wire that joins the 2 coils together. If you do that, then that gives you your 3rd wire, which you can use for coil splitting. I'll do that in another episode. So there we go. Rock on.